DVD is the guy. Let's talk about it. And how does he compare to Mordecai? There's some discussions online and in various places if people would rather have Mordecai this year or Tyler Van Dyke. We're going to talk about that, plus some penny stock Badgers who could drastically outpace expectations this year or in their career as Wisconsin Badger. All that and more. Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Ryan Harings, your host. We got Rajeev, we got Justin. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Right now, if you need tickets, go over to Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Gentlemen, we got the news I think we were all waiting for, but officially Tyler Van Dyke named the starter. I'm going to just kick it over to you, Rajeev. We'll start here. Like, any surprise or any thoughts? Tyler Van Dyke officially the guy.
No surprise at all. We knew he was coming here for that reason. I'm happy it's there. We've obviously read about things and heard about things. Competition that really wasn't a competition, but I like it. I like that we can just stop thinking about that now. Focus on focus on what's going on. He can get all the 1 reps, which he's pretty much been getting anyway, but now he can really get all the 1 reps. And yeah, let's move ahead to the season. And I definitely don't like it when teams leave it until the end of camp and you're a few days out, because I just think it's not necessarily a distraction for the team because they probably already know, but still, it's just like, let's focus on what's going on. He's the guy. Let's do it. And yeah, man, we are so close to the season. I can't wait.
Yeah, my instinct on this, having seen him on Saturday, was it's pretty clear to me that Van Dyke is the better quarterback. Like, you could just kind of tell he seems more refined than what Braedyn does at this time. And Braedyn's got some things to work on yet. That's no slight to him. He's younger. He hasn't had nearly as much experience, so it's not a huge shock. I just think this was kind of probably built up a little bit more as a competition than what it actually was realistically. And they're like, Van Dyke has a higher ceiling. I mean, I don't know what to make from this, what we're going to see this season, but I do think that there is some upside there with some of the things, especially given on Saturday, there's a lot of things that they're not showing that I think the press isn't going to see a lot of that they want to do offensively. I feel cautiously optimistic about the offense this year.
So I think I know where you're at on this, Justin. Rajeev, I'm curious where you're at, because there's 3 basic kind of scenarios in my head how this could have played out. Did it take this long to name a starter because both were playing really well and it was kind of difficult to choose one? Both were playing kind of mediocre and it was difficult to choose one, or this was never really a quote unquote, I don't want to say real competition, but this has been decided for a while and it just took a while for them to name it and kind of divvy up these reps. What do you think is the most likely of those scenarios? I know, Justin, you kind of went with this has probably been decided to some degree for a little bit now.
Same. I think it's been decided. I mean, not necessarily since he transferred in, but I feel like he came with some likely, guarantees of at least a good opportunity. And yeah, I think that it's been decided for a while, but you want to develop your number 2 guy. You want Locke to be ready. And I think that having that competition there is fine. And ultimately, even if Tyler Van Dyke thought he was really in a big competition, that's good. It's not going to hurt him to be in a competition. So yeah, for me, I definitely think it's been decided for a while.
I would agree. And this is where I get just a tick frustrated. Because we were there. I was there last weekend. I was there for the open practice, not the open practice, the scrimmage on Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night. And it felt like at that moment the decision had already been made. I don't understand why not just say it then. Coach Fickle had presser afterwards. And I would also say, I feel like the couple practices before that, Van Dyke was clearly the better guy. I would have made the move then. Like, we can talk all we want about Locke needing the reps to be ready. Van Dyke needs reps with the ones. Yeah. Like season is coming up, and this is a guy who has an inconsistent career. I kind of feel like they could have pulled this trigger a little bit earlier. And it's not like Van Dyke wasn't getting reps with the 2s, but I kind of felt like he could have been getting more reps with the 1s, getting more consistent reps with the 1s, and building towards what he's going to be the starter. Like, I felt they drug it out. Listen, I don't know more than Phil Longo, but I felt like it drug out a little bit longer than it had to. And ultimately, those are reps with the 1s that Van Dyke didn't get.
But at least he gets 2 weeks of it, and it's not like it could have, because there are a lot of schools that will do it even worse than that. And they'll go 3 or 4 days out. They'll go in when they're installing, first game stuff. So I think it's really good that they've done it. At least you're right. They should have done it earlier, but I'm also okay with Locke getting the snaps that he did, but there will clearly be time now for him to work on it.
Yeah. I want to say that it feels like to me that coming into the fall, like if it seemed like Van Dyke was the likely guy, like you can have a competition if you want, but he probably should have been getting 3/4 of the number one snaps right off the bat. Seeing them live, it's pretty clear he just throws a pretty well. He's a little more decisive in his decision making right now. Like I like Braedyn. There are times when we watched him on Saturday where I'm like, you need to pull the trigger. Like it's either there or it's not. Get rid of the football. And we didn't really have that with Van Dyke. The only time Van Dyke really got in trouble was when guys broke through and he was like, oh crap, get rid of this now. But he normally got the ball pretty quickly on time. And if it wasn't there, he just threw it away or whatever. And that just wasn't the case necessarily with Braedyn all the time. So to me, it's one of those things where I think it probably should have been made a little earlier, but oh well. At this point, hopefully that helps Braedyn if we ever need him during this season. And he's a little bit more refined.
Yeah, I want to shift into the next topics. Justin, I know you're a little fired up on something, and I think you and I might disagree a bit. But I do want to quickly, just short answer, do you feel good about the quarterback spot right now?
Yes. I think that compared to most of the teams that are in the Big Ten, I feel like we're going to have the advantage of the quarterback position in most games. I don't know if I wouldn't say that I view him as a significant advantage, but I do think that he's more capable than most of the guys that are going to coming in. Like, does that mean he can't have a poor game? He definitely could, but going into the season, I think his upside is better than probably 75% of the other quarterbacks in the league.
I feel good about his upside for sure, but I also have a little bit of I'm a little jaded from last year and the way that we expected Tanner Mordecai to play, which I know we're going to talk about in a second. I just feel like I just need to see it. I need to see Western Michigan get beat by 30 points, and then I'm going to feel really good about it. And I need a little bit. I wasn't able to see them last week. I haven't seen them live, and I just want to see it happen because I'm so fearful that it's just not going to work, and then we're going to be back to kind of square one. So after Western Michigan, I'll tell you how I feel about it.
I think that's fair. I'm kind of right where you're at, Rajeev. I feel like I'm solid with it. I don't feel great about it until we see it against live bullets. Let's shift to Justin. You wanted to bring this up. I'll let you tee this off. Yeah, go ahead. Floor's yours.
Yeah, there's this narrative has been going on since Van Dyke came in. Would you rather have Mordecai or would you rather have Tyler Van Dyke? And my response to this is, it feels like we're burying a lot of the rough parts of the Mordecai experience that happened last year. The launch, which was probably some of the worst quarterbacking I've ever seen in my life. And a very, very mediocre regular season. Yes, he played a little bit better towards the tail end of the season, but we're looking at a guy that played the bulk of the season. I think he was 8 or 9 games and had 6 touchdown passes. Now, he had a couple of touchdown runs, but a big part of the issue with him that he had those touchdown runs was the fact that he wouldn't pull the trigger in the red zone. So there's some things there that it feels like people take the LSU game and they want to run with it and act like that's who he was as our quarterback, and that's just not the case. And while Van Dyke hasn't, I'm not sure he's going to be lights out this year. I have a hard time believing that Mordecai would have a significantly better season than what we'll get from Van Dyke. Like at best, I think they're probably a push for that. And at worst, I think Van Dyke has a chance to be a lot better just because I think his floor is higher in terms of production. Whether that looks that way on film is another story.
Rajeev, where are you? So I slightly disagree. I want to take a quick break because I feel like this is going to push, and I need to get the ad read in here. I think this is going to take up a bulk of the next segment potentially. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get back and see if we agree or disagree, because I think it's a good talking point. There are several different podcasts and people watch practice who have blatantly said, I would probably rather take Mordecai, or at least I think it's a very tight discussion. And I think that's an interesting one to get into. But first, let's take a quick break. Justin, Rajeev, and I are all going to be going to the Penn State game. We're going to be there. If you would like to join us, we're definitely going to have some type of meetup. And we're not going to sell tickets for that one. We are not that vain. You can just come see us. But you need tickets to get into Camp Randall. Game Time is the place to go get those tickets. Best inventory, lowest prices, guaranteed for any event you want, and panoramic views of the seats. So you can look around and you can see where Rajeev is going to be standing up and cheering on third down, yelling national championship or bust. You're going to be able to see where Justin is. You're going to be able to see where Ryan is looking for Xavier Lucas on the field. You're going to be able to look around and see what is around you before you buy the tickets. Best prices, lowest competition among those prices. Like you can go there, not waste time, get what you want, get the event that you want, the date you want, and save money. There's really no reason not to do it. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off. All right, let's get into this. So I actually slightly disagree with you a little bit here, Justin, because the man was a shotgun quarterback in an air raid without a center that could snap the ball, for gosh sake. Like, you look, there's a baseball saying, right? You are what your stats say you are. Was he the quarterback he was at Wisconsin last year, or the quarterback he was for all those years at SMU? Like, I tend to think he was more the quarterback at SMU, and at Wisconsin, we just gave him a center who couldn't snap, inconsistent running game, receivers who dropped the ball, tackles who took that you complained about last year.
I did.
Who struggled pass blocking, who struggled with snap counts, and we said, you fix everything, like you're Peyton frickin' Manning. You fix it all. And he's not a transcendent quarterback, so he can't fix it all. I thought it was telling the way the coaches spoke of him, the players spoke of him, and now he's with the 49ers now. And let me give you this quote from 49ers quarterback coach Brian Grease. Impressive physical attributes that extend beyond his bazooka. We're really this is not me saying this, right? We're really excited about him, Grease said. Physically, there's no question he can go do it. Like, I think he was the quarterback that we could have used, and we just gave him a crap ecosystem around him. Now, when I compare him to Van Dyke, I think they're in the same tier. They're different quarterbacks, but I think they're literally the same tier of guy, and you could flip a coin if you give them the same type of pieces around them in terms of what you're going to get better.
And that's why I said push.
So for me, I feel like I wanted you to go first, Ryan, because I feel like I'm going to break the tie a little bit here, only because I kind of am a bit in the middle of both of you. I totally understand where Justin's coming from about revisionist history with this, because there were certainly times where we were like, oh my gosh, like what is this guy doing? Where there's simply not that cohesion and connectivity that we expected to have with the receivers and picking up Longo's offense. But I also will say on the other side, we had 32 drops last year, and 19 of them were when Tanner Mordecai was quarterback. He has an adjusted completion percentage of 75%. I just feel like he also ran really well. He saved us in third down situations. He moved the ball down the field, and he did have 9 touchdowns. I know you're counting the 6 in the regular season, but he did have 3 in the bowl game, and it's still, because he didn't play that many games, I feel like you have to, include that. But in my opinion, Tyler Van Dyke has a higher ceiling. To me, there's no real question about that, given what happened at Miami at a serious and in a serious conference. I'm not dogging SMU. I'm just saying the competition's not quite the same. So I really feel is like Van Dyke's got the bigger ceiling, but I also understand that Mordecai did have a lot of good traits last year. And I can understand why people liked him and why people want to, like, I don't necessarily want him over Tyler Van Dyke, but I see how some people can say that. But at the same time, totally hear Justin on the revisionist history, because it is easy to look back now and say that Tanner Mordecai was a better quarterback, but there were so many times where we were frustrated, with his play.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the deal here, is that it feels like everyone wants to talk about the 3-game stretch that Van Dyke had at Miami, and that's who he is as a quarterback. Like, I've heard how many fans tell me, oh, how terrible he is. Well, he was also injured during that for the sake of the argument, but he also has some of the best game. Like, if we look at some of his big game performances, they're better than basically anyone that's played quarterback at Wisconsin in the last 20 years outside of Russell Wilson. Like, we don't have quarterbacks here that went out and threw 4 touchdown passes and 350 yards. Yeah. One time against Illinois.
Sorry. No, I agree. So for the record, I actually would take Tyler Van Dyke over Mordecai as well. I just think the upside's better. I just don't think it's a slam dunk. Right. I really don't.
I'm not saying it's a slam dunk. I just don't understand the logic that like it feels like people want to call him the LSU quarterback. Well, we've also talked about how terrible the LSU defense was, and that plays a role in it. Like, you're not getting a lot of those plays against Iowa. And yes, things would have cleaned up significantly if he had a better center. Like, that's one of the teams that I think a Renfro would have made a bigger difference against than anybody. When you have a really good defense that's ready to tee off, that half second of time to survey the field and get rid of the ball is a big deal.
Can I also pop in with, I don't know if you heard this, Ryan. I said this on our show on Sunday night, but I watched Bortolini. He's a Colt, and he played in the second half of the Colts game. Listen, those snaps got a lot better. That's all I'm saying. I'm proud of him. The snaps got a lot better. He had a lot of shotgun snaps. They looked good. That's all I'm saying.
Well, hey, that's crazy to me. That's absolutely insane to me. But
it
I'm
looks pretty good.
Like, I'm stoked for him because he gutted it out for the team last year. He was like, he would have had better film probably if he was a guard, and I respect the hell out of him for doing that. So I'm stoked for him, but that's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy to me. All right, let's get to the next. I'm excited about this one. This is going to be called penny stock players. Just so if you don't know what a penny stock is, essentially a stock that's a couple pennies, a dollar, whatever it is, that could absolutely blow up if the right things hit, could far exceed expectations. So the criteria for this is which Badger players on the roster, either this year or for the course of their career, can far exceed their expectations that fans have for them.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Can we have like people in the newest recruiting class?
100%. Yeah,
okay.
Whatever. Yeah, totally. 100%. Whatever you want to go.
Just making sure.
Their IPOs, Rajeev.
I love it. A lot of ways we can go with this. I'm really excited to see what you guys have on your list. I'm excited for this guy, so I'm going to lead off with this one. Langdon Nordgaard, the walk-on receiver, for a lot of reasons. Again, these are called penny stock guys for a reason. Nobody go out there and be like, oh, Locked On Badgers thinking Nordgaard's going to become the Blitnikoff winner. Oh, no, but like, he's 6'5", 200 pounds. This is a guy who's a three-sport guy, right? Basketball and track. He got to states in the 110-meter hurdles, 300-meter hurdles, and the long jump, or the high jump. You're talking about a really athletic guy in all areas, but like great speed, which I understand that matters for receiver, but he's not slow. Like, he runs probably in the 4.6s, which for a 6'5" guy with really good hands and the ability to high point a ball, his film, it's all just hands catches, great hands catches. I like him a lot. And then we saw him in practice. I saw him honestly kind of burn Xavier Lucas on an out route that we were there with. That was the Saturday practice. He was one of the only guys that caught when they were doing the 1-on-1 deep balls. He was one of the only guys that caught a touchdown in that rep. I think there's a lot there in the vein of what we were hoping Tommy McIntosh could be.
Yeah. I honestly brought him up when we were watching on practice. I'm like, who's that guy? And you had to point him out to who it was because, I get there and I have no clue based off the numbers that everyone's wearing. You can figure out the quarterbacks. You get to the positional groups. You have guys with their shirts up and stuff like that. You can't tell what they have.
Nope.
But yeah, he definitely flashed a little bit on that. And that, given the fact that there weren't a ton of guys that flashed on those one-on-ones, that was impressive. Him and Tretch were basically the only two guys that I was like, wow, okay, nice play.
Yep. Who wants to go next?
Sure, I'll go. Kurt Neal. I actually think there's a chance that he is really good on the interior this year, and that will make a substantial difference on the defensive line.
What'd you see from practice when you're watching him?
I like him. The athleticism is there. There was one of the, I think it was a Van Dyke run to the edge where he came off the middle and really got out there and kind of forced him to the sideline. That I was impressed with his ability to move. So he has some athleticism. He definitely has a little bit of burst to him. And I think that there's a chance that he can be pretty disruptive on the interior. Now, I don't know if he can do that consistently just based off his size. He may wear down over the course of a game, but he'll have definitely times where he goes out there and he'll flash.
So I'm going to go with a new guy. I'm going to go Dylan Johnson. I know there's not really penny stocks. I mean, he's a 4-star guy, but I just feel like Dylan Johnson.
This is like Microsoft being
I haven't seen him play yet, so I just feel like it's someone who I think. Don't worry, I will only use him from the. Well,
I interrupted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think Dylan Johnson just has like that. He has like these unique abilities. How quick he is with his moves. He's raw, and he needs to grow a lot. But he's really fast when he commits to moves. and he plays really strong. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but he looks so much stronger when he plays than he probably even really is. And I feel like that's the technique he uses and the way that he plays. And I feel like that's the kind of guy that, again, we're talking about could just blow up, things go right. That's the kind of thing you'll see NFL D linemen do with how quick they are and how decisive they are. Now, there's a ton of growth needed to get anywhere near that. I'm just saying, like, he's a guy that I'm sort of buying on like, would not surprise me one bit if 3-4 years from now, he's a second-round draft pick. And I just feel like that's the kind of player that could project at that level. Maybe it's not a penny stock, but, you know.
Well, it's unproven, though. I can see where you're going with it. Definitely not a penny stock, but I can see where you're going with it.
Well, I didn't go as far down the depth chart as you did, but yes.
Like, Apple just decided to go public, and Rajeev was like, buy it.
Buy it.
Like, Justin has a starter.
That's right. All right, let me get my next one. I'm going to go with Angel Toombs, the outside linebacker from Rufus King.
Okay.
So it's interesting. If you go back and watch film on him, and we're all psychos, so I have watched film on Angel Toombs and all these walk-ons. So in high school, he was a tight end. He was an in-space linebacker. He had his hand in the dirt. They kind of used him everywhere, and he was indecisive. Like, you can see on the film, like, he's not really sure of where to go. But you also see, like, the 6'5" frame. You see the ball skills of a tight end. You see the ability to hit people in space. And now you see him a year later. He's 6'5", 245. What linebackers do we have on the roster that size outside of Aaron Witt who can't stay healthy? It's really just him, honestly. Nobody else is 6'5". Everyone's 6'4" and below on the outside. And he's running with the twos, had a couple really nice plays. Osen and I were there talking about it. So if you're flashing with the twos as a redshirt freshman and you have the type of frame that makes you a little unique on the edge, again, these are penny stocks for a reason. But as maybe a guy who can develop into kind of a run stopper, an edge setter with that type of size, I would foul that one away.
Yeah, I think one of the ones, and I want to give this, Ryan and I were talking about this guy earlier today when they said we should do a show. Colin Cubberly. He was a guy that I was I wasn't as high on him as some of the other offensive linemen coming in. The staff seems to love him. I think that he's got a really bright future on the interior, and I think it's time we give him a little bit of due. The guy has played really well in camp. I did not expect him to find his way into the 2 deep, and it sounds like he's doing that as a true freshman. And that to me is really impressive because I thought he was a guy that was going to take a couple of years to kind of percolate his way up, but he came to work.
He's got the right size for sure.
So I'm going to go James Duran. I'm curious as to what you guys saw from him in person, because he's not someone I've read a lot about, but I feel like he's got the measurables to really be a solid offensive lineman and a guy that can follow in the guard. We've got really good guards on our team now. We have a history of having good guards, and I feel like he can really follow in those footsteps to be a top-notch offensive lineman early in his career. I mean, he's just a redshirt freshman, so like he can definitely be a guy that in his sophomore season is getting like solid reps, starting on the line, and develops into, again, another. When I look at penny stocks, I'm thinking people who have NFL capabilities, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think that's what I see in James Duran. Not a guy that's really ever talked about. Yes, he's on the depth chart. Obviously, he's going to get some time this year, but I'm really curious to see. I think he can flourish given the physical tools that he has, the way he plays. He's a guy that I've liked since he started, since we got him last year, and a guy that I think could really project down the line.
Yeah, I liked his film coming out of high school. Like, I actually really thought he was kind of a sneaky pickup, and he just hasn't. But he's so young, and that's a great one because people have already written him off with the new offensive lineman coming in. I did like his film coming in, so I'm kind of curious why he hasn't made more of a move. I honestly hadn't seen much.
He seems like a guy that struggled to put on weight a little bit, and I think that was part of it. Is that I think he does have a pretty high ceiling. He just had to get up to the necessary weight level to be able to hold up, because you can't have a 290-pound guard. Like that guy's going to get beat on. You need to be 300, 310 at least. And
he has put on 15 pounds since he got there, though. So I mean, I think that there's
he's making the move.
Sure.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
He's a little like Ryan Corey this year, where it's like Ryan Corey came in at like 280. I think he might be 290 now, but like he's a guy who needs a year of seasoning to kind of get the physical ready to where he can actually be out there and play.
And oftentimes linemen need that, right? So it's not surprising to see a lineman, flash in their third year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the norm. Offensive linemen, you don't hear offensive linemen actually see the field as true freshmen unless they're freak, unless they're Travis Frederick.
Or Kevin Haywood.
Yeah. who are just monsters. It's very, very uncommon to have a guy who's ready to play unless they're forced into it, and then they're quite frankly not ready to play, but they have to. These guys seem to have some ability because some of them are pushing ahead of guys who have been on the roster for a couple of years already. And I think that's pretty telling when you see true freshmen come in and start athletically pushing those guys. That's not normal. Like normally they take a year still or two to be able to do that. And like guys like Mandel and Haywood and everyone else kind of jumping in here and being ready to go is really impressive.
It's one of those dual-edged swords though, right? Like it's really impressive. And it's also because
it's also, you have to look at those guys and like, how many guys did we miss on?
It covers a little bear here. It looks like me staying by myself after a week of not grocery shopping. There's Oreo cookies and Triscuits, and there's like nothing else. The cupboard's kind of bare.
Honest, there's no way the Oreos are still there.
No, there's not. Triscuits, because I've ran out of cheese. Here's my next one. I got two. I'll hit them quick. Jayce Arnold, right? A cornerback that doesn't get talked about a lot. That dude can run. And ultimately, if a dude can really run, you always kind of in the back of your head are like, maybe it'll click. He was a sub-11 guy. This was a player who, if you look back at his recruiting profile, these weren't like legit offers, but Georgia was kicking the tires. Florida was kicking the tires. Tennessee was kicking the tires and doing it because, again, he's a 4.4 guy. Brady Collins has put those numbers up there. Cornerbacks that can run are always going to be valuable. So if the light kicks on, that's somebody to track. And then the other one for me is Chris Brooks Jr., who has been getting more buzz, but like I still think people are sleeping a little bit on what he can be when he's healthy. And like,
he's got to be healthy.
He is now. And every practice, it feels like more and more people are like, yeah, another play by Chris Brooks, another catch by Chris Brooks, another physical route by Chris Brooks. I'm telling you, he can ball. Like Chris Brooks can play football. He just got to stay healthy.
He was the next name on my list. And I just felt like there's a guy literally, that's the definition of a penny stock, and that it's someone who no one's really talking about except nerds like us who watch everything and read everything, right? And all the people that are listening to this show, yay. But I just think that, yeah, like one of these times he's going to stay healthy and he's going to be good. And he's clearly got that. Like it doesn't just happen multiple camps in a row that he's a guy that is constantly being filmed, constantly being talked about. Quarterbacks seem to love him. His teammates love him. Like, I just feel like wouldn't surprise me at all. And we've got a very deep wide receiver room. And I have another wide receiver I'm going to talk about in the next thing. But I just think that like it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he saw the field a lot more and was able to knock in, 15, 20 catches. I mean, it absolutely can happen.
Really quick, how many receivers are going to go one-on-one in Hunter Wohler in a drill and bury him on this roster? Probably just Brooks, right? Like that's we saw it on a clip. That's probably
Green
Brooks
might be able to.
Oh, Green maybe. Yeah, that's fair. It's not going to be too many guys in that room, though. I'll say that. Justin, any more penny stocks for you before we jump into the quick last segment here?
Yeah, Braedyn Moore. I think he's a guy that may get some reps probably in the rotation at safety this year. Guy pretty likely is going to be one of the starters, I would guess, next year. Has a chance to maybe fill that Hunter Wohler role of being a big physical guy. Might even have better measurables than what Wohler has. So that is a guy who has a ton of upside that if they can get his feet wet, I think he is potentially going to really flash next year.
Yeah, they've done well in that area in recruiting for sure as a guy they brought in. Let's go to the next segment. We're going to finish up here. Regular players, guys that have regular rotation roles this year, but aren't going to get talked about and are going to play an outsized role based on how fans talk about them. Rajeev, let's start here. I know you mentioned receiver, but whoever else you got on your list.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Vinnie Anthony. I just think that Vinny's a guy that there's a lot of talk about. Of course, Will Pauling and the inside guys and Tretch and Bryson Green. I talk about him a lot. Vinnie Anthony just kind of strikes me as sort of that underappreciated guy that could be that. And, he's going to be the likely starting boundary guy, right? I mean, maybe CJ Williams and him are splitting time, but he's going to get catches. He's going to be really impactful on this team. And he's still probably not going to be the guy that we talk about because we're talking about Will Pauling. We're talking about Tretch Kahuna. Justin constantly talks about Tretch Kahuna, rightfully so. And I feel like that's why some of these guys buried on that receiver depth chart, he's the starter, but they're just not talked about as much. And that's the name that I immediately thought of when you posed this.
That's a good one.
Yeah, for me, it's our guard tandem. I think both guys are unheralded a little bit, and I think both of them are really good. And that's going to be a big part of if this offense is what really turns the corner this year. It's going to be because the interior of that offensive line is really getting pushed and they're able to run the football regularly. I think that's going to be a big deal.
I think both those are big time ones. Like, so really quick, I love both those. Vinny, I think he gives you something that Tyler Van Dyke needs, which is the vertical threat, where CJ and Bryson, a lot of those guys don't, which is why I think Vinny's going to play more. And even if he doesn't get reps, it's going to be drawing safeties a little deeper. It's going to be putting pressure on the back end. And one of the guys on my list, Justin, was Joe Huber. So I'm right there with you. I think Joe Huber is he's probably the most versatile guy on the line. If somebody gets hurt, Huber can play center, tackle, guard. Like, you can move him anywhere. And for a line without a lot of depth, he's going to be the interchangeable piece.
He's getting drafted. I'll say that right now. Like, that guy is put up good film last year. He was a very solid player. He's probably going to be a plus starter for us this year on the offensive line. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes in the 4th round or something like that to somebody. But I think he has a chance to be a really good offensive lineman this year.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic one. One of my guys on my list, I got Ben Barton. Barton, nobody's going to talk about Ben Barton, right? People are going to talk about Neil Thompson.
We're talking about Brandon Lane more.
Brandon Lane when he gets in there. Barton's a senior, played 13 games last year. He's going to be one of the top 4 defensive linemen. He's 6'5", 308. And he just needs to be solid. And as a senior, a redshirt senior at 6'5", 308, he can be solid. And nobody's going to talk about him, but that's incredibly important. So I'm going to go Ben Barton as a guy that, I don't know, even among Psycho fans, if you were to throw out that name, I don't know. I don't think a lot of Badger fans know that name, I guess is what I'm going to say. I think the Psychos do, but the regular ones don't, and I think they should, because he's going to be a big cog in this defense.
Mm-hmm. My other one my last one I wrote down is, and it's someone that, again, he's going to get a lot of playing time, but I don't think he's getting enough credit, and that's Preston Zachman. You talk about a guy that just has the can-do attitude, constant motor, just able to play every down. He had I talked about this a lot. I think it's great. He had a missed tackle percentage, pretty much the same as Hunter Wohlers last year. It was around 8% versus guys like Latu. I mean, don't even talk about that one. It's horrible. And he doesn't get talked about enough. Austin Brown obviously is going to get a lot of reps this year. Braden Moore, you brought up him. There's a lot of safeties there. But I think Preston Zachman is just that sort of journeyman guy who just brings it every week and doesn't get the accolades that a lot of the other guys do.
That's a good one.
Yeah, my other one is Ashcraft. I think there's
reading my list.
He's a guy who I think has a chance to be a plus blocker this year and maybe have some sneaky numbers at tight end. I don't think it's going to be significant because I don't think the tight end is going to be a big part of the passing game this year. But I could see them using him situationally in that role because it does disguise things a little bit more having a tight end out there as opposed to going 4 wide. And I think that they can do some things with him where he can leak out, potentially cause some things where the defense just can't account for him as easily as they can for a slot wide receiver.
Yeah, I got him on my list too. Yeah, 100%. He reminds me of a construction worker, right? When you're going to work, there's that just everyday Joe grinding away, building the road. And he's not the architect that everybody talks about. He's not the finished product that everybody's looking for. He's not the capital venture list industrialist that's putting all the funding together that's in front of the board. He's just the guy grinding away to make it all happen. He's going to get 6 catches, 10 catches, 15 catches here. I don't know. It's not going to be a lot, but he's going to play a ton. They use him on the edge. They throw receiver screens behind him. He's going to put his friggin' hard hat on, build you a road, and nobody's going to talk about him. I love that pick. That's one of my favorite ones. Last one I have on my list is Jackson Aker. Just because it's going to get lost in the freshman running backs. It's going to get lost in Tywee. It's going to get lost in Ches a little bit. And in the meantime, there's this rando fullback guy that Chris recruited playing in the air raid, looking completely out of place, who's going to score 3 touchdowns this year in red zone situations. And is going to block a lot on the edges and is going to get reps in the passing game. I think Aker is not going to get the credit he deserves this year.
I think he's absolutely going to have a 3rd and short role this year, as whether a blocker or a guy that uses almost like a fullback in that scenario.
And talk about a guy who brought it in camp in the spring. He's here to play. He knows that the depth chart in the running back room is huge and it's getting better. And he's carving out a role. And yeah, I mean, I give the guy a lot of credit for just stepping up and saying, you know what, I'm still a part of this, and I'm going to be a factor on this team this year. I mean, that's just good vibes. That's good energy. And I think that's super important he's an important guy to that room, and he doesn't get talked about.
Yeah. And great culture guy, like you mentioned, with vibes. He's a really good guy in the locker room. Gentlemen, this was a great show. Ton of fun. Any last thoughts on TVD, Mordecai, penny stocks, anything else that you didn't get off your chest?
I'm good.
I'll take that as a no.
I mean, we've got 2 weeks. Like, here we go. We are so close. I can't wait. I really need to see, and we've said this before, I really need to see the Western Michigan game be nowhere near what that Buffalo game was last year. I want to start this season off right. I want to come on that first reaction show on Friday night. It's going to be late, not necessarily for me, but it's going to be great. And I can't wait to just be excited about what we saw. And I'm going to be really disappointed if we don't like what we see, because I'm ready to go and I'm ready to get pumped. I'm ready to get behind Luke Fickell's year 2 and all the improvements, and Tretch Kekahuna, the freshman, everybody, like, put on a show. Let's do it. 2 weeks away.
And I'd say this, even if it's not the year, let us be fooled for a few weeks, right? At least give us also, like, even if it ends up kind of going off the rails, can we get like a 49-10, a 52-17, like that, where we see Dupree, Jones, all of the third and fourth quarter? Like, I think that's what we all need to see to build some hype into this thing. He is Justin. He is Rajeev. Oh, go ahead, Rajeev. You were about to say something.
I was, but I'm just going to extend your show. I just have a question for both of you, and it's a curious thing, if it's all right. It's just like, it was actually something, I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you guys listen to the Camp. Great show done by Zach Halpern and Jesse Temple. They kind of posed a question on the show, which I thought was really interesting. It's like, we want to see advancement with Luke Fickell in year 2, right? We want to see growth. What to you, what does growth really look like? Like, does it, not necessarily record wise, like, what do you need to see to basically feel like Luke Fickell took steps that we need to see in year 2 of Luke Fickell? Just very curious as to what your guys' thoughts on that. Sorry for extending the show, but I had to ask it.
Let's do it.
I can be as concise as possible here and just say this: a cohesive, coherent offense that is capable, and a defense that is able to stop the run.
Yeah, those are good ones. I think it's competing in the big moments, right? It's playing Penn State, Alabama, Oregon, and looking like a team that isn't going to get punked, right? It's looking like a team that's going to punch back. And honestly, like, this is a wins and loss thing. So I'm also like, I think wins and loss has to be a part of it, right? Like, yeah, give me 8 wins, and then don't get blown out in the big games. You compete in those, even if you lose 3 out of 4 of them. To me, that's it right there. Compete with the big boys. Look like you belong to some degree, and then you have to at least improve or hold par with the record. So that's where I would go.
And for me, it's kind of sort of the opposite of what you said. It's not the opposite, but it's beating the teams we need to beat. I don't want to see anything like Indiana, Northwestern. I don't want to see being down 3 touchdowns against Northwestern ever again in my entire life. So, like, that to me, I mean, I know that we have games against Alabama and Oregon and teams that are better than us. And yes, you're right about competing in those, but I need to see us smash a couple teams up. I want to see us beat the teams that we need to beat. Yes, we have a very difficult schedule, but there are games on that schedule where we do not need to have a difficult game.
Let's not be going to overtime against Nebraska.
And that's something that
might be a tricky game, actually. That Nebraska one.
And I'm not thinking Nebraska per se. I'm just like, Western Michigan, South Dakota, Purdue, Northwestern. Like, Minnesota. I want to see us beat teams up and really show that, we were a team for so many years that was like that 10, 11 area. Now, and we kind of fell back last few years into the 7. And I don't want that, because we're losing to teams we shouldn't lose to. That to me is unacceptable. I want to see that change this year.
Hypothetically, though, if that happens, but we don't look like we compete in the big games, then are you like, you need both of them, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
You do, but I guess competing, yes. I mean, if we lose all those big games, I'm not, and we look good and we look decisive, and we're like, our offense, like Justin said, our offense is better, our defense is more, playing with more speed, and we're actually getting some disruption. I think that I'll be good with that, because those teams are still better, because I see growth. But you can't have growth at all when you're losing to Indiana, Northwestern. You got to get over that hump.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. Rajeev, Justin, they're at the Bucket Report. Certainly go check them out. Go follow them on Twitter. Both really good follows, good Badger guys. This is the Locked On Badgers. As always, go check out after this Locked On College Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, 24/7 college football streaming channel. Let's go. We're getting close to the season. I am Ryan. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. On Wisconsin. We'll talk tomorrow.